Here's how I made this bubble chart showing daily data across each month of the year throughout an entire year. This is a really fun chart to use and a great way to show stuff that maybe wouldn't work that well if you tried to show it in a line chart. This can be a cool chart for spotting hotspots and trends within your data in a different way. So every single bubble chart is going to have a x coordinate, a y coordinate, and a value for your bubble size. So where your bubble is your x and y coordinates, and the size of the bubble is your value. For each of these, they have to have a separate little layer, right? 1 through 12 for all months of the year. So if you look at our data here, see that 1, we've got a 2, we've got a 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12. And within each of those, we have 31 x values, or slightly less depending on the length of the month, representing each day. What that's going to do is plot our data out into January across one line, February across another. One issue that can come up here, though, is that it won't be able to do labels. So we've done labels in a separate chart that is actually layered on top of our chart. And that is just this data set here. It's just the months of the year and then 1 over and over again. And that just gives us the labels so we can put them on. And then one long line that we can kind of use as a center point for each of the months so it's clear that they're on the same sort of linear track. There's just a few things you're going to want to keep in mind when you make any kind of bubble chart like this, and that's going to be how you scale the bubbles and the colors that you use for the bubbles, because they have a big effect on what your chart actually looks like. So for the size of the bubbles, I prefer to use width of bubbles instead of area of bubbles. That just makes it easier to interpret. It gives a little more variation in the bubble size. And then if you see this little option to scale bubble size, you're going to want to adjust this based on your data set so that the bubbles don't overlap too much and are easy to interpret. It's going to make a big difference when you scale it to get it to look the way that you want it to look. And last but not least is the color of the bubbles. I like them transparent, maybe around 70%, so that it's easier to spot the hot spots and trends here. That little bit of overlap, being able to see what's behind it, can really make a big difference in a chart that's actually easy to interpret. Every time I post a video like this, I get people telling me we just use a bar chart. Always some comment like that. The reason this chart can be useful is that there are times when you have data that's daily, and if you plot it out in a line chart or a bar chart, it's super hard to interpret. If you aggregate this into weekly or monthly data, it can sometimes still be hard to interpret, and you lose some of the nuance and the insights you might get from the data set. In those situations, when you really want to maintain daily levels in your data, you really want to show each individual day separately, and you want to spot hotspots and trends, this chart type can be more effective in some situations. Not all of them, but some. So feel free to test it out. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye, folks.